Today's Expert Process Podcast. Do you know that it takes 10,000 hours to master any subject? Welcome to the Expert Process Podcast, where we cut the time to mastery in half with our seasoned pros. And now, from Atlanta, Georgia, broadcasting worldwide. Here's your resident expert, Durante Smith.
Well, that to me, it gets you the respect of your team, right? Because what you're talking about is accountability.
Yeah.
So if you can't hold people accountable, it will be a runaway train fast, right?
And production is a treat.
It's a train, right? And once it jumps off track, it is very difficult to get back on track, because I'm telling you, I've been there, so we have a lot of, synergies in that way, But I know one of the things I want to get to is that you have done productions that, so it's kind of a vague thing we're talking about now, kind of ambiguous, right? Sure, yeah. But let's bring it home for folks that are watching, because they have kids or whatever, right? But some just watch animation, right? Mm-hmm. Tell them about the projects that they would know, like, some of the stuff that, like some of the Octonauts and stuff like that, and your experiences on that, right?
Yeah, definitely. So on a project like the Octonauts, or Olivia, or the Mr. Men Show, or more recently, there's a project called Sherwood, which is a YouTube original, produced by Baby Octopus with this incredible animation studio, Toy Box from New Zealand. And my role on those projects was production management, right? So for Sherwood, for example, I was a line producer, which meant at the very beginning of the project, they had this idea. They came to me and said, we want to make this. And I started putting the pieces together. So I built a budget. I worked very closely with Toy Box to make sure that their budget worked for what we needed.
Wait. Now Toy Box they're an animation studio?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
So Toy Box is an animation studio. So to help you guys understand what she's saying, you got the studio, but the studio wasn't the one that came to you, right?
No. So the company that developed the idea, Baby Octopus, they're sort of the executive producers. So They had this idea. Right. They sold it to YouTube Originals, and they oversaw basically all the creative, right? They were the creative mind hive for the project. And then they brought in Toy Box, and Toy Box was a real partner in fleshing out the look and the story. And the director there had a lot of input as the creative sort of evolved. So there's different ways of making shows, right? Yeah. Some shows originate in animation studios. Yeah. So in that case, they're everything, right? They're
That's
the
like
executive producers.
Right?
Exactly. But for a lot of independent studios like us, we have to work with partner animation studios.
That's right.
So in doing that, you do the budget and you schedule, and then it's a lot of keeping everybody on track, right? So making sure that we're hitting those milestones. Scripts are being delivered when the animation studio needs them. Making sure that the creative producers, so the folks at Baby Octopus, have what they need when they need it to be able to share with our outside partners like YouTube. So it's a lot of making sure that the logistics are working so that the creative folks can focus on the creative.
So you say this so naturally. She's so fluid with it. You gotta see this, right? This is when we said with the true pro was when they're fluid. She can just flow with it. But a lot of folks don't know just how extensive all this stuff is on our side of it that we have to put together, right? So, you got the studios, you got tons of different connected pieces, connective tissue, right? With the different, you just mentioned two, 3 companies that you were dealing with there, right? But then you got the whole production side, what you were saying as the line producer or showrunner, right? Stuff like that. Can you speak to like that production process? Like, I guess maybe the what do you call that? The workflow? Is that what that's called?
Yeah. Okay, so say, for example, take a 3D animated show. So you'll start with, once it's greenlit, meaning once your buyer says, okay, move ahead with production, we're happy with where the idea is at. You'll start with scripts, right? Mm-hmm. So you'll get a script in really good shape. Everybody will approve it. And then you'll go into casting, right? You have to figure out who your cast is. So you'll hire a casting director. And you'll find an audio studio to do all the audio voice recording. So you'll do the voice recording. Mm-hmm. While that's happening, you have storyboard artists at the studio doing storyboards. So those are, visual representations. The first time you're taking the script and making it visual. And you're sort of sketching out every shot and, increments within a shot to show what the framing would be, the composition, all of that. Then once you have that, you cut that into what's called an animatic or a Leica. And that's when you actually take those storyboard panels and you cut them to time. And you're using the voice records that you had recorded, while your artists were storyboarding. So this is the first time you have a rough soundtrack of all the voices and the dialogue, and everything's timed out, and the animatic. So you're seeing the timing of the picture.
It's starting to come together at that point.
Exactly. That kind of becomes the skeleton for the rest of the project, because everything's built upon that.
Right.
So then, while all this is happening, you're doing design. So you have artists working on, first 2D designs of what the characters in the world and the props look like. And once those are approved, then they go into 3D modeling, and there's a lot of steps to that. And then once you have those assets built, then animation can start. So the animators will take that animatic, use that as reference for each shot, and put the characters in the 3D world and start to animate. And then once that's all done, you have to go into post-production. So you put together all the different pieces in a process called compositing. You have your audio post-production. So that's when you have your sound effects and your musical score being added to it. And everything sort of comes together at the end, and then it's off and delivered. So
it's like an orchestra, really.
It really is. Yeah. It's a lot of people working in concert with each other. And the line producer has to make sure that that's all working, right? There's no breakdowns, because, you fall behind in design, and then the animation's not going to be able to start where you want. And then that's going to put off the post-production. So it's sort of, it's a lot of balls in the air to manage, but it's also really fun.